practicing over 20 years, 21 death cases, acquittals, dismissals, and not one execution.
This is Hope. Hope Yvonne Kitchens. Hope is here today because on July 2nd, 2004, Bonnie Kitchens, her mother, found that Hope's life had to be protected, had to be saved before she was even born. Bonnie Kitchens was much like her daughter. She had hopes when she was born. She had hopes when she was a child. Unfortunately, most of her hope never quite came through. Bonnie was born to parents who were not married. Her father was an alcoholic who beat her mother and who left and abandoned his family early. Her mother, also an alcoholic, began to take up with different men. And through her childhood, this was the normal life that Bonnie would live. When Bonnie was very small, after being with her first father figure, the man who beat and drank, her mother did the one thing that her mother learned about protection, and that was she sent Bonnie away. She sent Bonnie to live with her mother's sister and brother. And it was there, at this age, that Bonnie learned that beating wasn't just part of a normal life. But as a child, she learned that rape and sodomy and more beating was the life that she was going to live. Because her uncle, from the age of 6 on, until she was finally taken out of that home, did those things to her. And told her that she deserved it. Told her this was the way things were. And told her this was a normal life. When Bonnie was 12, she was finally returned back to her mother. But unfortunately, the hope that she had of being a part of a normal family was again going to be unanswered. By the time she was 12, her mother had a new boyfriend, a man who was as savage as any man could be. Again, Bonnie watched for the next 3 years, 4 years, as this man beat her mother, beat her sister, beat his own child, Ronnie, a 3-year-old. And she learned that the way to be a mother and the way to protect was to drink, to ignore, to hope that this person would change. By the age of 16, Bonnie had no friends, had withdrawn into her own world of protection by staying away from most everyone. And by the time she was 17 and left the house, she had already tried to kill herself once. At 17, Bonnie finally left her home, took up with a man 23 years older than her. He introduced her to drugs. She had seen the alcohol before, she had had it before. She had seen how her mother coped with it by telling her things will change, things will be different, and if they're not, you can drink it away. But by 17, Vonnie had taken up with this man and had lived with him for several years. Until after she was pregnant with a child and miscarried, she found enough courage to leave at that time. 4 years ago, Vonnie thought that she had hope. Her hope for her love of her life, the hope for an affectionate person, a hope for a family. She thought she found it with that man, Allie Rogers. She was wrong again. When she met Albie, she didn't realize that she had found the father figure, the man that she had always lived with, always been with. When she met Albie, they moved into a small apartment over on Lambert Lane. She worked while Albie stayed home. She paid the bills while Albie drank. But she always hoped that he could be something more than what he was. She always believed that there would be change in him. Even when he showed her affection by slapping her across the face, by backhanding her, and by punching her, she always thought, she always hoped that he could change. She didn't realize that she was back home in the life that she had always lived, the life that she always knew, and with a man that was no different than any of the other ones she dealt with, that she had known, that she had loved in her life. She also hoped that things would change after her first child was born, her son. And when she told the news to the father, he showed his elation of learning that he would be a father by beating her again and again and again. The only protection she knew for that child after he was born was to do what her mother did for her, and that was send her and send him away. But she stayed because she believed, she thought, and she hoped that Albie could change, that Albie would be different, that she could have that life that she always wanted and that she always hoped for. And this was her life, day after day, night after night, while most of us at midnight would sleep quietly in our beds. Vonnie would make that walk a half a mile down to the chicken plant, where she would work for 8 hours a day in blood, in filth, and in horror of seeing chicken after chicken after chicken, day after day, hour after hour, processed through in the blood and in the sweat and in the horror that she found to be a normal life. All to make money to bring home for that man she thought could change, that man she knew loved her despite the beatings, that she knew cared for her despite the slappings, that she knew loved her. The man that she paid the bills for. The man that had one word that if she had ever read carefully or ever understood would have known who he really was. And that was the word tattooed that said death on that arm. And the other arm bore the marks of where Vonnie's money went for those 8 hours that she spent every day. The drugs that he injected her. Now, her life would have gone on like this for however long she would have had with him before he'd eventually do what he was meant to do. But things changed at the end of June. Things changed because two things happened. One, Albie's sister, Regina, came to live with them. Another, Roger. Another, staying at home, drinking, and not working. Another, spectator to the abuse. And the other was that Vonnie found out she was pregnant again. But Vonnie always had that hope that by telling him, giving him the chance to be that father again, that things would change. And she told him early that morning when she got home on July the 2nd that Albie, we're going to have a baby. And Albie's response was as brutal and as savage and as quick as it always had been. He beat her in the chest, he beat her in the neck, and he beat her in the stomach. We ain't going to have no baby. Vonnie, by that afternoon and early evening, had let Albie be. Because Albie's rage was fueled by the alcohol that he would drink all day. And we know that was true because when they did the autopsy on him 2 days after he died, y'all remember what his blood level was? 0.19. 2 days after he died. But by that evening, Albie had drunk himself into that rage that wasn't going to stop. When he was at home sitting in that little apartment, his hands still showing the marks from what he had done before, and we know it wasn't from getting a job, but we know how he got those marks on his hands. As they sat in that apartment, as he sat in that chair, with Regina now there in the apartment, and Regina now getting to be the spectator of what he was about to do, he told Vonnie, "Tell her what you done! But first, get me a beer." Vonnie went into the kitchen offside this small living room where they lived and saw Regina's purse. In it, she knew that Regina carried a gun. This is the first time she had really ever seen guns or been around them. But she took the gun out of the purse because she knew at that point in time what was going to happen. She knew it, but she couldn't accept it because she believed to the last second that Albie could change, that Albie loved her, and that Albie loved the baby. She got the beer, she got the gun, she put the gun in her pocket. She didn't walk out 3 feet away and shoot him in the back of the head. She didn't walk up to him and shoot him. She had no desire to kill Albie. All she wanted him to do was change. And as she handed him that beer and walked back to that chair a few feet away, she sat. And Albie proved what was on his mind. As he came up out of that chair, after telling her to tell Regina, "Tell her what you did!" and came out of that chair with his hands and fists ready to take care of the problem that he saw, and that was not having no baby. In that second, Vonnie realized that he couldn't change. And what was more important for her was not what would happen to her, but what would happen to that baby. She shot him. And after she shot him, in her despair, she crawled in between that tub and that toilet. And she punished herself, as she has done every day since, by killing the man she still loves. Now, you've heard from Albie's sister. I'm sure we would say that the apple has not fallen far from the tree. What did she tell you? That Bonnie shot him in that chair, in that pristine chair, without a mark on it? Remember the same Regina Rogers, who would say to you that Albie never struck Bonnie. Albie never hit Bonnie. Albie would never beat where a baby would be. Hope lives because of her. It is not a crime to protect a life, especially a life that has no ability to protect itself. Hope waits for her. Give her the hope that she's never had. Give her the hope that she's waited for. Give her the hope that she deserves.